So whenever you're working in QuPath, I highly recommend that you create a project. To do that, the easiest way is to simply create an empty folder on your computer, drag it on top of QuPath, and then accept that QuPath will create a project from that empty folder. Then I can select more images, drag them on top, and I've got a few different options. So if I know what the type is of the image, I can set this now to avoid any prompts later. If I know which image reader I want QuPath to use, I can specify it. Normally that'll be either OpenSlide or bioformats for a whole slide image. But if I use the default, QuPath will select one of them. If I want, I can also rotate the image in increments of 90 degrees if it's been scanned at an orientation that I'm not so happy with. But I'll accept all the defaults for here and press import. And then QuPath will work through these images, add them to the project, and that means that I can then quickly switch between them. So one of the advantages of working with projects is that whenever I start to make annotations then, if I open a new image, it'll ask if I want to save the changes, and I say yes. And so this then means that whenever I reopen the image, the changes will still be there. One thing to notice is that the project itself, it doesn't actually store the images. It only stores some data associated with them. And so what that means is, let's suppose that I close the project. If I reopen it, just as it is, everything's already there. So that's fine. But what's if I close the project and then I hide some of my images elsewhere? So for example, into this other folder on the desktop. Now if I try and open the project, because it doesn't contain the images itself, it spots the ones which are missing and then highlights them to me in red. I can double click on one of them and I can set the path for that each image individually. Or I can say that I wanted to ignore it. But if I ignore, then I simply won't be able to open some of the images. So the smarter choice is to press this search button. I can choose a folder where my images are to be found. QuPath will search, it will try to match them all up. It will show me here on the right if it managed it. If I press apply changes, it will update the paths to the images, and now I should be able to open all of them as before. And so that's just one of the benefits of working with projects. It will also manage other data associated with your images, for example, object classifiers and pixel classifiers. And so I would strongly recommend that if you're working for any length of time in QuPath with multiple images, certainly it's worthwhile creating a project as the first step every time you do. And finally then, if you want to back up your project, the way in which I do it is I would simply right click on the folder and then I would compress it to make a zip file. And you could do something similar on Windows or Linux. And so everything will be backed up within that folder for the future, and that gives me a backup of my data as well.